I have the pleasure to talk to you about a rehabilitation program for children with neurofibromatosis and how we managed to get it going here in Austria. So the goal was that we need to help children who are affected by NF to deal with their challenges. And so the Austrian patient organization NF Kinder, we had the goal to develop a rehabilitation that's really customized for the needs of children with neurofibromatosis. And now I would like to walk you through our journey over the last 2 years and how we managed to achieve this. So why are rehabilitation programs for children with NF needed? NF1, NF2, schwannomatosis, they are all very complex diseases with many comorbidities. And while NF1 tends to lead to symptoms earlier, also NF2 and schwannomatosis patients can be affected before adulthood. Children with NF sometimes have to undergo complicated surgeries because of bone issues or tumors, or they have to undergo long chemotherapies at an early age. They might also have severe neuropsychological or behavioral issues. And in order for these children to be equally involved in every aspect of their lives and to live a self-determined life and to avoid discrimination and disadvantage of these children, we need rehabilitation programs. So what was the situation like in Austria? For the longest time, it was really unclear in Austria who would be responsible for pediatric rehabilitation programs, who will provide the funds, how high is actually the demand for beds. And it was only in 2010 when a working group in Austria designated by the Austrian Ministry of Health started to think about these things and to develop a proposal for a nationwide concept for rehabilitation programs. So we didn't have a single center for pediatric rehabilitation in Austria for the longest time. So in 2012, it defined that a rehabilitation service should be available for children until the age of 18 years. There should be rehabilitation centers put up in the northern, the southern, the western, and the eastern region of Austria. It was decided that there's an umbrella of insurance companies or institutions that together with the community of pediatrics developed this program. There was an EU-wide award program to figure out what the costs are to build all this. And it was also defined that it should be not only about physical rehabilitation, but also about mental rehabilitation. And depending on the reason of the rehabilitation, a stay in such a rehabilitation center shall take 3 to 6 weeks. And the building process for these rehabilitation centers started in 2017 and 2018. And the first centers opened for patients in 2019. So it was really only until recently that there was an opportunity for children in Austria to go to a rehabilitation center. So 9 rehabilitation centers were built in Austria, and it became a little bit like a race who will open up their doors first. And so the centers also started to recruit heavily at different medical meetings to find, pediatric patients for their centers because they wanted to also showcase what they're doing to their payers. So this is the typical Austrian side of politicians posing for a picture, but they really built a lot of great rehabilitation centers. So we started to have first talks. We were, for example, at a medical event for rare diseases in Austria in late 2019. where several rehabilitation centers came to present their work and what they're doing. So I used this chance to, introduce myself to some of the representatives of these rehabilitation centers and to establish a first connection. We then had first visits to some of the centers. We organized visits to 2 rehabilitation centers we thought would be most suitable. One was about family rehabilitation after oncologic diseases. And the other one had more focus on neuropsychological and neurological rehabilitation and also mental health. So the one center that is focused more on neuropsychological and neurological rehabilitation and mental health is quite close to where I live in Vienna. It's about 15 minutes by car. So I organized an excursion to the center together with the psychological head of our NF department and also the social worker of the NF Kinder Center of Expertise. So after looking at the whole facility, we talked to the director of the rehabilitation center and expressed our wish that we would love to, have a program that's really suitable for the needs of NF pediatric patients. And luckily, the director of this center was really open to that idea from the start. So we agreed to form a working group in order to develop a NF pediatric rehabilitation program. So this is where the center lies. You can see it's in the east of our country, close to Vienna. So we installed this working group that consisted of Professor Sisi, who is the medical lead of our NF Kinder Center of Expertise, Dr. Thomas Pletschko, who is the psychological lead of the NF Center of Expertise, Kerstin Krottendorfer, who is the social worker in our NF Kinder Center of Expertise, Dr. Anna Cavini, who is the director of the Rehabilitation Center Kokon in Bad Erlach, and myself. So when we developed the concept, we conducted several online workshops and to really also explain to the rehabilitation center what are the different needs of the children affected by NF regarding medical aspects, psychological aspects, social aspects, pedagogical aspects, and functional aspects. And we also pointed out that it's important to not only consider the needs of the children who are affected by NF and who are participating at this rehabilitation program. It's also very important to understand the needs that the parents might have, that the siblings might have, the whole family system has, and the social environment has, in regard also to the organizational framework. So these were the main pillars of the concept development. And some of the key topics were that it's important that there's a close collaboration between the NF Kinder Center of Expertise and Kokon Bad Erlach, the rehabilitation center, before, during, and after a rehabilitation stay, because we have to ensure that the needs are clearly understood and that the rehabilitation strategy is individually adjusted. It was also important that we are, well coordinated when it comes to recruiting NF patients. So we use postal letters, online activities to make sure that we reach the people and inform them about this opportunity for them. We said that it's important that there is support for interested people with the application process, with insurance institutions, because I guess it's the same everywhere. These decisions are made by bureaucrats who are not really educated about NF. And without us, advocating for NF and explaining to them why this is needed, it probably wouldn't have been approved. So our social worker, our doctors, our patient organization, we supported the families on the way to make sure that their application is approved and they can actually attend at this rehabilitation service. We also defined that it's very important that there's a good mix of single therapy sessions, but also group settings. And we said it's so important that it's not a single child with an F that participates at such a program and stays there for 5 weeks. We really want to coordinate this and have several families be there together so that they can also use these opportunities to get to know other children who are affected, talk to other parents who are having an affected child, to also make use of this chance to interact with each other. So after conducting a pilot as a proof of concept, we said we're going to reevaluate the pilot afterwards. So in 2021, so this year in February, we conducted the pilot. We had 10 children with NF1 who went to this rehabilitation center for 5 weeks. As one of the rehabilitation programs, we organized a virtual session with an NF doctor, an NF psychologist, myself, and the participating families to educate them about NF and answer any questions they might have. At another occasion, I also visited the rehabilitation center and talked to the families to inform them about the activities in our patient organization, learn about their needs and what we can maybe improve. And we also managed to get a national public TV station to report about this NF rehabilitation program. So we had some exposure as well on the media. The team in the rehabilitation center is a multidisciplinary team consisting of specialists for pediatric care, specialists for pediatric psychiatry, general practitioners, professional nurses, psychologists and psychotherapists, physiotherapists, sports scientists, movement therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, art therapists, music therapists, dietologists, social workers, orthotists, social pedagogics, integrative and inclusion pedagogics, primary school teachers, kindergarten teachers, massage therapists, leisure time educationalists, and of course the administration and facility management and kitchen and service. So it's a big group of professionals that can offer any type of rehabilitation that is needed. And this is a look at the center, so of the whole complex. So you can see there's outside facilities like sports facilities, playgrounds outside. It's really open and full of light and very friendly. This is a type of lounge that can be used, a play area. You can see there's a reading corner. This is an indoor gym that can be used for physical therapists, but also just for leisure time activities and fun. This is a look into the restaurant area where people have their meals. This is actually one of the rooms where the families can stay. It's also possible that, for example, if a child with an F has siblings, that also the siblings can be attending the stay, because maybe the mother would or the father would not be able to organize, one child being for 5 weeks at the rehabilitation center and the other child being at home. We have an indoor climbing wall there where the children can use this for fun, but also it's important also a therapy program to, strengthen certain muscle groups. It helps with, back health. And also there's an indoor gym for strengthening programs. There's an indoor swimming pool that's used for fun, but also, of course, for therapy sessions. And they use several also very advanced robotic therapy devices, like this one called Amadeo, that is used for rehabilitation of finger and hand movements. So it's really helping children with the movement of single fingers and the thumb. or this called Miro, which is a computer-aided device that's used to train motor skills on a sensor-based screen. So it really helps to train the gross motor, but also the fine motor movements, rotation movements, eye-hand coordination. So it's specifically important for patients with deficits in motor function, concentration, selective perception, and what's also common in NF, visual spatial perception. Yeah, and here are some other examples of this device. There's also this Galileo training, how you like vibrating platforms that can be used for strengthening, for training the balance of different muscle groups, and this one called Omego, which is also a robot device to train the lower extremities to improve also motoric, sensoric, and cognitive deficits. So you can see there's a lot of very advanced technology used. Everything is brand new because they were just built. And yeah, we were just happy that we had the chance to develop this NF program. Also, what was very important for us is the parent counseling. So parents will also receive ideas, for example, to support language development in everyday life, individual recommendations, how to improve communication. We saw that quite some families still struggle to openly talk about NF in their families. So for some families, this day was also the needed impulse to open up and to really talk and communicate openly about NF. Parents are also counseled in a way that they learn essential know-how on language, speech, and games development, but also essential know-how on nutrition. So from the pilot, we learned that we were able to successfully get the applications for the NF rehabilitation approved by insurances. This was really a big unknown before because there had never been such a program before in Austria. So we didn't know how the insurance institutions will react. So we were happy that this was possible. And the families would never be able to participate at so many therapies outside of the rehabilitation center. So in a very intense 5 weeks, they have therapy sessions from Monday to Friday every day. And you can imagine that outside of such a clinic, if they had to organize everything themselves, if they would have to get every single therapy approved and then still pay some of the cost, it would be impossible to have the same support like we offer in the rehabilitation center. And the patients and the families don't have to pay anything for this rehabilitation program. We also learned that the families and children benefited immensely from the time they spent together at the rehabilitation sites. Yeah, and also we learned that we have to make sure that the families had access to additional support when needed after the rehabilitation stay is over, because in many cases they need continuous support and therapies. So the next steps was that we got the green light to invite more NF pediatric patients to the rehabilitation program. So we had 3 NF rehabilitation circles that started in August, and the last one is underway right now. I visited the center just this week, talked to the families there. We will make an evaluation by the end of this year and discuss potential improvements and future rehabilitation cycles. We'll also discuss how continuous support can be provided in and outside the NF Kinder Center of Expertise.